So welcome everybody. My name is Keisha Hudson. I am Managing Director of the Standard Chartered Women's Entrepreneurship Program here at the Zahn Innovation Center. If you're not familiar with the Zahn Innovation Center, we are a startup incubator located at the City College of New York. We have been in partnership with Standard Chartered Bank, a multinational financial institution, for well over 7 years in this women's entrepreneurship program. With their generous support, we are able to offer elective courses, startup competition, mentorship to young women entrepreneurs, as well as run a summer high school program called Boss Girls. And events like what you will be hearing from tonight. Today kicks off our speaker series for the spring semester, and we're excited to celebrate Black History Month with this talk tonight. Joining us this evening are two moderators from Standard Chartered. We have Deborah Thomas. She is the head of policies, procedures, and training and compliance. She works with employees to uphold the organization's missions, values, and commitment to the law. She is a member of Standard Chartered's D&I Origins, Nationality, and Ethnicity Group, Employee Resource Group, and actively participates in the company's Black Leadership Development Initiative. Deborah will moderate the conversation with Joy Fowler this evening. Also joining us is Chloe Petrick. She is the director of Standard Chartered Bank's Project and Export Finance team based in New York. Her role focuses on financing long-term projects in industries such as renewable energy, oil and gas, infrastructure, and metals and mining. Chloe is moderating the Q&A segment and the networking session after the talk. Please use the chat during the event to submit your questions for Joy. Also joining me this evening is my colleague, Catherine Olives, who helped us plan this amazing event. We're really excited for you to meet our moderators as well as our speaker. So I'd like to turn it over to Deborah.
Great, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here representing Standard Chartered Bank today. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to our very special guest speaker, Joy Fowler. Joy is the Diversity and Inclusion Senior Manager for the Port of Portland in Oregon. Both her career and undergraduate studies began in her hometown of Queens, New York. Upon graduation, Joy moved to Portland, where she spent 34 years in the financial services industry. During her career, she completed a Master's of Business Administration at Portland State University and her Certified Diversity Professional Certificate. In 2019, Joy was ready for a career outside of banking and took her skills to the Port of Portland. Joy is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., volunteers with Portland Workforce Alliance, and serves as the Portland Leadership Council for the United Negro Fund. In her personal time, she is dedicated to serving as co-founder of A Miracle Foundation, Inc., a foundation that supports children with special needs along with the families and caregivers and organizations that care for them. Joy also enjoys spending time with her 3 grandsons and traveling with her husband. Welcome, Joy, and great to see you again.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with everyone tonight.
All right, so I know everyone's really excited to hear from you. So let's dive right into those questions that are prepared for you. I'm really keen to learn more about the foundation you founded with your husband. So what led you to create A Miracle Foundation?
This is probably one of my favorite questions that I appreciate answering. We raised a special needs kiddo until he was 13 years old. And we knew fairly early on that he had a degenerative disorder. It didn't have a name or anything like that, but we clearly knew that his lifespan was not going to be as long as what we would hope for. And when he passed away at the age of 13, it was at that moment that I knew that we really had to do something more. We weren't really quite sure what that more was, but we knew that we wanted two things. One, his memory to live on, and then the other to be able to help children. And what better way to do that than to start a foundation honoring him and helping kids throughout Oregon and Southwest Washington.
Yeah, what an incredible way to honor your son's memory.
Thank you.
I know you must be incredibly proud of the work that your foundation has done. Can you tell us about some of those amazing things that have happened over the years?
Oh my goodness, when I think of where we started, it's our 10-year anniversary this year. Time goes so fast. And when I think about where we started to where we are now, when we started the foundation, we literally picked one thing to do. And we began with a snack wagon for the medical staff at the hospital that he frequented on an ongoing basis. And what would happen would be, they would go out for lunch. Notoriously, they would get called back into our room. And so we thought what a wonderful thing to be able to do was to provide them snacks so that they could either grab something really quick or when they left, put it in their pocket and have it to leave when they exited the room. So we started with a snack wagon at Randall Children's Hospital. And then now we've grown to do so many amazing things. We have a backpack program that's in 2 school districts. We partner with both Nike and AAA to make that happen. And we serve all special needs children in that section. We put park equipment in one of the local parks in Portland so that this way children can come that are either wheelchair bound or have some other special need to enjoy the park just like other children that are able to move around freely. We also do something called A Miracle Granted, and that is where we just decide to really grant a wish to a child that has a need, whether they want to go to a Blazer game or they want to go to a soccer game, or they just want to do something that takes their mind off of the things that are going on with them, especially if they happen to be hospital bound. We provide medical equipment to families or that have children with special needs. Oftentimes insurance doesn't pay for the whole thing or won't pay for it at all. And so what we do is we take the opportunity to either pay for it or partially pay for it. We've done hospital beds, wheelchairs, adaptable seating equipment, suction machines, car seats to help kids be able to sit up and travel safely. And so those are just a few things. A couple other things we've done is we've adopted 20 families over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years around the holiday season, just to ensure that they get things that they need, whether it's as a family or for the individual. And then the very last thing is, COVID has really caused a hardship on many of the kiddos here. And what we did was we partnered with the city of Portland and provided I think it's called the Great Divide, where we wanted to make sure that kids had computers or laptops handy and the ability to pay for ongoing internet service. And so we worked to make sure that that happened, and we served happily over 200 children. And we couldn't be prouder of being able to participate in that.
Yeah, that's just really, really great. As you were sort of walking us through all of these amazing accomplishments, I wonder how you publicized your foundation, right? So you start your foundation. How did you get your name out there in order to place yourself in a position to provide these services and this type of support?
Well, when you have a child with special needs and you spend probably, I would say, about 40% of your time in a hospital, you instantly make those connections with the hospitals. And then, of course, he was able to go to school. And so we were able to connect with the school district and be able to just infuse certain things in that way. And then really what happened I always talk about his memorial, and my husband and I joke that we had more people were at his memorial than were at our wedding. And it was pretty incredible because we didn't realize how many people he impacted. And so when we looked out, we saw, well over 500 people there. And we said, if this is our connection to getting the foundation's name out there, we are going to utilize it for good. And that's exactly what we did. We reached out to everyone that came. We said, here's what we're looking to do, and here's how we would love your support. And they did just that. They supported us.
Yeah, oh, that's really great. When we met several weeks ago, you talked a little bit about the new sensory room at the Portland International Airport. Tell us how this came about.
Oh, this is probably something that's really exciting for my husband and I. In January, we received an award from the Lowenstein Trust. And it's a $10,000 cash award that allows for you to utilize the money in any way that you choose for your organization. And at the time, they asked my husband and I, well, what would you like to use the room for? And we knew that we had placed a sensory room in the Beaverton School District, which is a school district in Oregon. And we thought we would love to expand in that area and really look to do some good work there. And literally, we received the funding. And because I work at the Port of Portland, and they know what our foundation does, they invited us to partner with an organization called Culture City, which is the nation's largest nonprofit providing sensory and accessibility equipment for individuals with invisible disabilities. And we were thrilled to be able to, what we did was we participated in filling the bags for the sensory room so that any child, and really it's not even just for children, but it is for anyone that has an invisible disability that just needs to have some quiet downtime prior to their flight. We are now in the Portland International Airport. So not only are we serving our community locally, but we're also able to serve people throughout the country and throughout, really, I'll say the world, because it's an international airport.
Yeah, wow, that just sounds amazing. And when you and I met, it was really the first time I've ever heard of the existence of such a service, but it just truly sounds like something that is of great value, right?
Absolutely. When you're traveling with children that have any type of sensory need, it can be very daunting to sit in a public open space if they're crying or they're uncomfortable, or the sounds of the planes might be too loud, or any loud noise. They make often those announcements that can also be disturbing to an individual. And so just being able to go into that quiet room to just sit calmly, whether it's they're looking at, whether it's they have a light that flashes, or they have little things that they can touch, just so that they can calm down and really acclimate and feel like they're almost at home while they're waiting for their next destination.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right. So if, for people that have interests and aspirations to, whether it's to start a business or a foundation like yourself, to me, it sounds pretty daunting. So how do you just get started?
Yeah, I'm a diehard planner. I think my husband would attest to that. And so I would say it really is important to start with a plan.
Yeah.
Determine, what you want to call your foundation or your business. What is the purpose? Like, what is the main objective that you're looking to achieve as you're thinking about what you want to do? And then also thinking about who you want to serve, like who are going to be your clients or your customer base, and really thinking carefully about that. Because when you don't think carefully about that, you might wind up serving someone that's outside of your client base. So really being mindful about that. And then really think big. what events and activities do you want to do? One of the things that I love, which I know this might sound weird about completing the IRS documentation, is they give you a supplemental document that allows you to think about things that are going to happen in the future. So what it does is it really does trigger you to start to think beyond just today, tomorrow, the next 1 to 3, 5 years. It allows you to think very long term. And doing that lets you generate ideas that really do support and things that you can actually implement sooner rather than later. So that's really how I approached it, is being dedicated. Then it's the paperwork. I mean, the reality is finding out what your state requires. For us, it's like filing in Oregon to file the information, followed by completing the IRS documentation, and then you wait. And waiting is probably, I would say, everybody's like, oh, how hard is it? The waiting is what's hard. And you write these letters to the IRS and you're like, it's the best foundation. It's going to serve millions of children, and you just sit and you try to be patient. So during that waiting period, what my husband and I did was we decided what events we wanted to do. What would be our first event? How would we approach it? Who would we want to invite? At the time, we weren't virtual, so we knew we wanted to do something in person that was a really small gathering. And to our success, we were able to raise $50,000 during our first event, which for a small 2-person foundation, we were pretty impressed with that.
Yeah. Wow. So it's not lost in me that, you're a mom, you're a grandmother, a wife, a professional woman, and a co-founder of a foundation. So how did you find time, or how did you balance all of that and sort of, kept going?
Well, I'll go back to I'm a planner. And so that's the beauty of it all. But also, I think it's important to recognize not only what I'm good at, but also recognizing where I'm not strong. And don't try to balance or do things where I know that's not what I'm good at. So for example, for me to get in a room and talk to 100 people asking them to donate money, that's not my strength. For me to go and maybe talk to a physician on an ongoing continued basis, not that it's not my strength, but you heard I have a day job. So I'm not going to try to overextend myself and that has served, I think, the foundation very well. And that's how I balance and just make sure that, and then every once in a while I'll get like a moment where I'm like, really energetic and I'll create something or I'll do something, but it's very fleeting. It's like, you got me for 6 hours and then I'm done. And then I pass it off and I move on and I go back to what I do for a living on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, let's talk a little bit about challenges, right? Because we know that, success comes with challenges. Tell us about some of the, the challenges you faced initially when you were setting up the foundation.
This I took because COVID is an obvious challenge, but one challenge I think that we faced, which really I don't think we'll ever deviate from this, was when you want to go for bigger dollars and you really you set your sights on, I want this grant, or, this amount of funding could come in. There's often an if you do this to it. And, when we look at special needs children or medically fragile children, we, number one, don't care what your ailment is. And number two, we don't care what your demographic is, what your gender is, or anything. We want to, because we recognize that being an individual with a disability is the marginalized demographic. But when you're looking for those bigger dollars, people want you to slot how many, Asian children did you help? How many Latino children did you help? How many Black children did you help? How many white people did you? And so when we looked at it, we had to come together. It's hard because you're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And when we talked about it, we had to be true to ourselves. And we were both in agreement, which is very nice when we're both in agreement, that it was like, no, we recognize that an individual with disability is the marginalized demographic, and that's all we're working with. Because when you're caring for a special needs child, it doesn't matter what race or ethnicity you are. We just want to make sure we're providing the care and whatever equipment or medical needs that you have.
Yeah, that's a really great point, about, not separating, people by color, right? Because, there are certain things that where there's just no respect for color or race or what have you, it just exists. So that's a really great point, that you've just made. So next question for you. As a diversity and inclusion expert, what are some of the things that organizations, particularly financial institutions, can do, to help the cause for a foundation like yours, or for women with entrepreneurial aspirations?
One of the things I would say is a supplier diversity program. That is where you get to sign up to say, here's my business, here's what I do, and here's how I do it. And then let those organizations utilize your products, services, that you have, so that you can actually grow your business and it can be sustainable. I find that many organizations, financial institutions or other, that invest in supplier diversity programs are very, very successful and are really putting that wealth back into the communities that a lot of them are in. And then also, when I think about lending, when you think about traditional lending, you have your bank lending, you have your credit union lending, but there's also something called micro lending. And micro lending really does allow for the smaller minority owned businesses to really tap into that, to be able to grow their organization. And they have so many wonderful programs. I know they have a lot here, so I assume if they have a lot here, there are many back east as well.
Yeah, thank you. So what advice would you give to women that have aspirations to open their own business?
From an advice standpoint, I would say jump right in and do it. But I'm going to talk about a plan a lot. Have a plan, because oftentimes you'll have to adjust and adapt based on whatever typically the external factors are that play into that. So really taking time to be thoughtful and really think about what it is you want to do and how you want to do it. But I say jump in and do it with both feet. There's no time like now. I would say, I feel like COVID and the pandemic have been a real great opportunity for individuals that have said, I am done, working the 9 to 5 for X company. There's the great resignation. I think now it's called the resignation tsunami, because people are leaving their organizations to go do different things and experience different opportunities. And so it's a real benefit right now for people to do that and really engage in the community around you. Use your formal connections and coworkers to really help build and grow the business that you're looking to do.
Yeah, thank you for that. As I prepared for this event, I couldn't help sort of recall some of the conversations I had with my 14-year-old daughter, who has expressed interest in opening her own business. Same question. What advice would you give to young girls, young teenagers who are developing an interest in starting a business someday?
Yeah, think outside the box, definitely, because I find the younger generation, the way they think about things and the way they process things are so drastically different than those of us that are part of the older generation. And so think outside the box, get a mentor. Someone that is maybe older than you, that might be doing something in the same line of work that you would like to do, but I'm also going to shift from a mentor to getting a sponsor. And what I mean by a sponsor is that's the person that can put you in the room with individuals that can actually get you the capital that you need and provide you the investment advice or whatever it is that you need to grow your business. So there's a difference. Mentors guide you along the way. You ask questions, they provide responses, but a sponsor will, I think, move any person along in a much different way that is really successful for your business.
Yeah, that's great. And, making the distinction between a sponsor and a mentor is really key. And it's a topic that have come up a lot recently. So thanks for mentioning that. All right, so final question.
Yes.
Obviously you're a co-founder with your husband. So let's bring your husband into this last question.
Oh, this
So
is gonna
what's
be a
it
doozy.
like? What's it like running the foundation with your spouse?
Well, I see him, he's on the screen. I do see him. I will say it is very rewarding.
Mm,
We realize through this that we operate very, very differently, pretty much like night and day. What he is strong at, I am not. What
yeah.
I am strong at, he prefers not to do. Notice how I said that. And I love taking it on. So I'm like your operational, figure things out, like make a plan, have a schedule, have a chart, have a checkbox. I'm that person. And he's the one that will go out and grow the organization from a
Yeah.
monetary standpoint. And he'll know 700 people in a room of 1,000 by the time we leave. And so really recognizing what our strengths are and using those strengths to play off of one another. Now, it does get a little hairy at times because we both think our way is the right way, but we talk about how we both have our way of doing things and just kind of letting each other move through the process that we take, because we always wind up very miraculously at the exact same destination and headed in the exact same way and proceeding, together on all of the things that we do.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you so much. I think your story is such an inspiration. I think, it's a really great way to honor your son's memory. And I'm sure he's proud and looking down from heaven at his parents. It was really, really great to hear your story. And I hope others found it as inspiring as I did.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate you for having me, and really being able to engage in this way has been wonderful. So I appreciate it a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to bring on Chloe to take us into our Q&A.
Right. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Joy, for sharing your story. Really inspiring. We have a few questions that have dropped on the chat, but as a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions for Joy, please use the chat function on Zoom, and hopefully I'll get to them. So the first question is around your logo for the organization. How did you select the logo? Yes, behind you. How did you select the logo, and what does it represent?
Oh my gosh. So when our son was younger, he was a full paraplegic and wheelchair bound, and he had this striped tiger that he held probably for, I would say, I feel like his whole from like 5 until he passed away. And he held it so much and for so long that the stripes wore off of the tiger. So we knew that when we were looking for a logo, that we wanted to select the stripeless tiger as the logo. And then you will see the foundation name there actually is a space between A and Miracle, but it's A Miracle Foundation. And we uppercased his name because his name is Amir, or was Amir.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that story. Another question that came in was, did you have any prior experience with charitable organizations and people who could support you as you went through all this paperwork and planning, or were you figuring it all out on your own as it happened?
No, I actually had a little bit of experience. The year before he passed away, he was pretty sick. And I think I actually used this as a way to kind of give me something else to think about. But you heard Deborah mention that I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and we have a local chapter here in Portland. And I was at the time serving in the capacity of one of the officers, and we really wanted to start a foundation because whenever we would hold an event, none of the funds could be written off by seen as a tax deduction by our guests. And so I created a foundation with about 9 other of my members. And we did it fast and furious. Took us about a year. And so that was my learning experience. So when it came time for A Miracle Foundation, it was just get the ball rolling and get started. And it was really easy to do for me.
Great. And that's quite helpful. And maybe that's a good pivot into another question that we had, and that was in terms of how did you go about you spoke a little bit earlier about the importance of mentors and sponsors. How did you go about finding a sponsor in this relatively new arena for you?
Did you say funding a sponsor? Finding a sponsor?
Finding a sponsor.
Yeah. For us, it was through connections. There was, I was part of a volunteer organization and happened to meet a woman that held an event at her home. And we met the CFO of Nike and had some really great conversation about what we do. And I think when I think about sponsors, I feel like he served as a great sponsor, because when he heard what we were doing, he was like, oh my goodness, Nike produces, not only do we do running shoes, we also do backpacks. And that allowed us to really get that level of sponsorship. And then really through, and this is not my area of expertise, I will say it in a minute, but really, being willing to share your story and willing to ask for money. That, I feel like when I think about the work that my husband has done, that's been his strong suit. He's all about sharing what the story is, sharing, who we're helping and how we're doing it. And then he's willing to say, can I get your monetary support? Which for me, that makes my heart hurt. I'm just like, no, it's okay, we're fine. And he's more like, no, we need dollars. And how, if this is what you can do this year. And he's also really great about saying, this is what you've been doing over the course of, 3 years. Are you willing to increase it as we look to advance our programming? And so that's really important. So and if you're not good at that, find someone that is, because that is really key and essential to knowing that you're not. And even if you try it and you realize, oh, I'm not really good at this, find a partner that you can say, hey, would you be willing to help me? Typically friends, family, another person that's really great at it, and probably because they're related, is my mother-in-law. She can get put in a room and you're like, well, where is she? What's happening? And she knows 5 new people, 25 people that she thought she knew. And then she's off to, hey, I just got you guys, $5,000. And we're like, okay, great. And, so when you have those people in your life, celebrate them and invite them into your circle so that you can grow your organization.
No, thanks for sharing that. And a couple more questions that I'm going to group together. Is how do you approach failure, and how do you know your limits? Similar but same theme.
I think I can only speak for myself. I think the way I approach failure is, okay, that didn't work, so now what? Like the example of where we can't get these hundreds of thousands of dollars because we won't break our children down by demographics. it was like, okay, so we won't do that. What do we need to do? Let's have a fundraiser every quarter and really engage our donors. Let's ask our donors for how, if they have friends that they would like to share with us so that we can grow, the funding that's coming in. So really taking it and not letting it get you down, and turning it into a positive. And then there was another part of the question that you said.
The second one was knowing your limits.
Oh yeah, that's all about knowing yourself. And you learn when you get put in a room or when you're engaging with someone, where your strengths are and you utilize them. So for me, I'm not the one that if we have an event or an activity that I will be having you crying at the event, because I'm your planner. So I have a checklist and I'm going to go down it. We're going to talk about this. Here's our programming. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Okay, great. I'm done. Bye-bye. Where my husband is much more the, let me tell you a story, and everybody's crying and then we get donations. And so it really is important to just know yourself. And if you're not sure, ask someone, because your friends will be very honest with you and let you know, where, maybe maybe you should let Alan do that, Joy. Those are the words I get from my friends, and I listen. And it's not hard for me to listen. And I'm also open to receiving the feedback, because at the end of the day, the objective is that we want the foundation to be successful. We want to support special needs children. So if it means I have to take a back seat, then I do that.
I think that's great advice. Just knowing your limits and being receptive to
Okay with
feedback.
saying no. Get the words no formulated in your mouth, because it's very important. That helps you know your limits when you have to just say no, thank you, no, that won't happen today, or no, I can't do that, or not right now, maybe at another time, and being okay with that.
I think that's a great pivot into another question that we have for you, which is, for someone who is a big planner, how do you balance getting clarity on your plans versus the variables outside your control, which could have significant impact on your ambitions?
Oh boy. So I'm kind of a plan A and a plan B. So even though I'm a planner, I'm willing to go with the flow, which is a little bit, probably not normal, because I realize that there are things that are outside of my control. And I have my balancer, which is my husband, who's like, Joy, that's something that you're trying to fix it or change it or repair it, and it can't be done. And so he's the alternative to me saying, but it was in this right here, I wrote it down. He's the one that will say, well, you need to find an alternative. And then we pivot and we just look for a different way to approach things. And I also think that, I don't know, I don't really want to say age has a lot to do with it, but I think had I had the opportunity to do a foundation, a little younger in my life, I think maybe I would have gotten a little caught up in the external things that happen. But as I've gotten experienced a lot more, I think I'm okay with external things happen and we have to adjust.
I love that. We have another a few couple more questions.
Okay.
One was with regards to the launch. How did you know that you were ready for the launch?
Well, number one, we knew there was a need. When you see the children that you come in contact with in the hospitals, and you interact with various individuals in the medical profession, whether it's a pediatrician or a neurologist or a gastroenterologist, you know that there's a need there. And we actually launched, when I told you we started with one thing, which was our snack wagon, we were paying for it ourselves. I think it was costing us like, $200 a month. And so we said, hey, we don't really have a lot of money. We're just going to jump in and start doing this on our own. And we would just start to fund it. And we started small, but we knew we had to do something to get us started. Otherwise, we'd keep waiting for, maybe dollars that would not show up. So just really being mindful of the importance of the need and to get out there and get started.
And as a follow-up, did you have any fears before your launch, or were you absolutely certain that it was the right time?
Yes, fears in that nobody would want to donate, so that we wouldn't have the money to be able to put forth the because you heard me say planners. I had all these programs outlined. I had them named. I knew everything that was going to happen from point A to point B, but no money. And so the fear is that people wouldn't fund us, or that we wouldn't be able to grow, or that people would not want to support children with special needs, which that essentially would break my heart, because when that group often, depending on the need that the child has, they may not be able to express themselves. And so just the thought that maybe someone would be like, oh, I don't want to give my money to that. And that still does bother me about that much, where I get very protective. And, so those were probably my biggest fears.
And I guess, how did you find the confidence to move past those fears?
Oh, that person whose face you see above, named Alan Fowler, he was like, we're doing it. And we just, that's the beauty of having a great partnership. We just jumped right in together. And it's also great because when I would be concerned about something, he was not very confident. Or if he was concerned about something, I was confident. So we've never been not confident about something at the same time, which really, I think that has to also do with the relationship that we have. Not only are we husband and wife, but we're also friends. And so aside from, where you can get into that, oh, he's my husband, and we focus on that we're friends. And as friends, we're able to do this work. And we happen to be married, happen to be in love, but this is going to help us be successful.
Thank you. I guess one follow-up question from me based on your responses. What advice would you give people that are starting their business on their own, and so don't have that support system, that whether it's coming from that would be coming from another business partner?
I would say, when you think, so this is where I talk about mentorship and sponsorship. So you can do it alone and you can do it on your own, but always have some individual that you can go back to, just to bounce things off of that person, because not having that, you could be going down a direction or in a direction that may not be best for what you're looking to do, or they may have seen something happen or know of something that's coming that you may not be aware of. But if you are going to do it alone and you don't want to sponsor and you don't want to mentor, then I would say just do research, educate yourself, make sure that you are aware of all of the things that are out there, so that when you start your business, you're as well informed as you would had you had a group of people surrounding you, whether you take workshops, whether you do conferences. All of those things can help guide you if you choose to do it alone.
Thanks. That's very helpful advice. And for another question that we had was, what are your plans and ambitions for the foundation over the next few years? And are there any plans to add any sensory rooms?
Yeah, well, first, the sensory rooms, I believe that we want to add one in every school that we support. So we already have a couple in the Beaverton School District. We would like to add some in the Portland School District. And we'd also like to expand to other school districts, so that this way we can put the sensory rooms in there as well, because they're critically important, especially when you think about, the airport is great, but when you think about school, where kids are intermingling with one another, and that's where so much of your social skills are established, and how that can impact children, where if they have an invisible disability, they can benefit from the room. So I know that there's a goal to do that. And then what was your first question again? Oh, where would I like to see the organization in?
Yes, plans and ambitions for the foundation over the next few years.
Plans and ambitions, I would love to see us beyond Oregon and beyond Southwest Washington. I would love to see us, in Midwest and East Coast, being able to serve a multitude of children in many capacities. And so we will entertain requests from any city, any state. Oftentimes, you know, we do require, well, not oftentimes, always, we require that there is a, oh gosh, what do you call it? Not a counselor, but a caregiver that is, you know, like a doctor or someone to be able to provide the request. And so that can only help us grow in that area to do that. So that's what I would love to see. I would love to see us in multiple hospitals across the country. And I would also love to see us doing something, you know, overseas. If we travel somewhere, let's try to see if we can make an impact while we're there doing something for special needs children that, you know, are not in this country as well.
Well, best of luck. I would love to see, and we would love to see you in other states as well. I think we have one last question in the chat, and
Okay.
that is, who supports you and Alan to get all of these initiatives done? Is there a staff or a dedicated group of volunteers?
So we don't have a staff. It is just the two of us, but we do have, I would say, some of the best volunteers that we could ever ask for. They support us at every event that we have, whether the event is in person or virtual. They really come through and make sure that they're providing us, whether it's information or whether it's just doing things that we need, delivering something. They really are a great support system for us, and they've really become part of our family. If we're not having something, they're reaching out to us to say, hey, are you doing the wrapping event for the gifts that you do? Or, hey, are we going to do something that involves, you know, the kids, because last year we did X, and are we doing it this year? They really do keep us on our toes, and we appreciate them for that, because they serve as both not only a support to the foundation, but also a personal support to us as well.
Thanks. I think that's. Are any of your volunteers on listening in right now?
I think I saw Sydney Bowers. I also would like to recognize Keisha Hudson, because with her, when we would do Pampered Chef fundraisers and be able to raise hundreds of dollars there as well. So, and I think I might have seen my mother-in-law, Sylvia Welch. I'm not sure if she's still on. And I can't see anybody else, but.
No. Well, thank you.
Oh,
thank
and
you
my
all.
husband, Alan. I already mentioned you. See, this is what I'm talking about. Super extra. I already mentioned you, but yes, my husband, Alan Fowler.
I think on that note, thank you so much, Joy, for answering all of those questions. I'll turn it back over to Keisha and the Jean Innovation Center for closing remarks.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Joy. Give us a second. We're transitioning over. I just wanted to pull up a shared screen for a second, because we've been talking about the activities that A Miracle Foundation has been involved in, and we wanted to give you a look at the sensory rooms and some of the other initiatives. So Joy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in these photos as they come up?
Absolutely. So this is the sensory room at the Portland International Airport. And the art that you see on the wall was done by a local artist. And the lighting that you see actually moves, and so that as individuals enter the room, they can take a seat and look at it and observe it. Also down at the bottom, the four things that you see, they actually, you can touch them, and you can, there's little balls that are in them that flow around, so the kids can actually take time to take a look at those as well. And this is just a different look at the sensory room. So it's in one of the wings at the Portland International Airport. We just got word that it's in the international, well, the Delta Airlines site. So if you ever come to Portland, you will see it as you enter, but we're also going to put another one in another part of the airport as well. location to be determined.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's our backpack program. Not only do we do backpacks to the school districts, but we also offer backpacks to both Randall Children's Hospital and Providence Center for Medically Fragile Children. And so this is the one donation at Providence. And the kids, because they do go to school there, they can put whether it's their medical equipment, their medication, or anything in there. This is the snack wagon donation at Randall Children's Hospital. Because of COVID, we deliver the boxes to them outside of the hospital, and then they wheel it up. And we actually have a personalized wagon, like the little red wagons, that they load all of the snack items in. And then here's the backpack donation for Randall Children's Hospital. And it is such a pleasure to see when you go to the hospital for whatever, you'll see a child like wheeling around in the backpack, and we get so excited. This is our annual holiday donation event where we adopt, as I mentioned, 20 families. So we go shopping at the local Target. We have a great partnership with them where they offer us a small discount, which allows us to increase the amount of gifts that we are able to purchase. And we all come together and we shop, we wrap and label all of the gifts, and then we bag them up and then deliver them through the holiday season.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joy. For those here who are interested in maybe how they can get involved, how do they support your efforts? What would you like to share with us?
Well, you can always go to our website, which is www.amiraclefoundation.org, and see all the great things that we're doing. And, so I know my husband's not going to like this, but not only from a donation standpoint, but also if you know of a child with special needs in your area that you're in, encourage them to talk with their physician or their their caregiver to just submit a request to us, and then we can walk them through the process. We may have to turn something away if it's too big, like we're not going to buy a van for somebody, but we may be able to, buy some equipment that supports the child being in a van. So there's always opportunities for us to do that. And then of course, we always welcome donations of any dollar amount. We are at the point where we don't worry about whether it's $1 or $1 million. We are appreciative and really thankful because it just helps us do all that we really love doing on a day-to-day basis.
Wonderful. I'd like for all of us to please show some love to Joy Fowler of A Miracle Foundation, to Deborah Thomas, as well as to Chloe Petrick, our moderators,